On the 17th of October 2019, an extradition warrant was issued by a U.S. judge, giving the Mexican National Guards the green signal to arrest the notorious Guzman Lopez, son of the infamous leader Joaquin El Chapo Guzman of the Sinaloa Cartel. A large convoy of vehicles circled Guzman's house in Culiacan and successfully had him in custody. But not for long. Within seconds, the entire city was up in flames as over 700 cartel gunmen began to attack the civilians and different military targets. For every minute Guzman stayed in custody, there were more burning cars, more hostages, and many terrorized housing units where the military's families lived. They had no choice but to release Guzman Lopez and send 8,000 troops to restore peace in the city. The Mexican president supported the release and argued that the capture of one drug smuggler could not be more valuable than the lives of innocent civilians. This was the power of the Sinaloa cartel that the Mexican army did not anticipate. It took them just seconds to rally up and terrorize the city with the most hard-to-get firearms, reach the most hard-to-reach military families, and have the army surrender over their cartel leader. The Sinaloa cartel took over 37 years to be what they are today. Everything from their fancy weaponry to their strong allies and connections was built by 4 founders and over 100,000 members. Here is all you need to know about how the Sinaloa cartel is crushing the Mexican army. When it comes to arms trafficking, Mexican cartels always get the lion's share. The U.S.-Mexico northern border has been the trade route for over 2.5 million illicit American guns, and it's also the same route used for drug trafficking. In all these cartels, the Sinaloa cartel has been the most dominant smuggler along the Pacific coast, as they shop for guns in Arizona and Texas, which is a primary market for arms dealers. From Texas, they can easily get first-hand any weapon, like the .50 caliber, which retails at about $10,000 to $12,000 each. According to the Armament Research Services, the cartel soldiers are equipped with a mix of small arms, which include a range of both AK and AR-15 platform rifles, as well as FN Herstal Minimi and M249 SAW belt-fed machine guns, and handguns including Beretta and Glock models. In more heated events, kind of like the event of freeing Guzman's son, they were seen using an M72 series shoulder-fired rocket launcher and revolvers of Romanian origin. In the past, there have been many clashes with the army, which we'll talk about later in detail, and the cartel soldiers always come equipped with body armor and load-bearing equipment that were even marked Marina or Policia Estatal, or State Police. That's because they've confiscated the police's finest armory in clashes where they've been victorious. Either that, or they've simply shopped for them at their everyday Texas arms supplier. The Mexican government has tried their very best to get U.S. gun manufacturers to curb the flow of arms across Mexico's northern border, the old trade route. So, is this effort stopping them? According to an arms trafficker, it is somewhat affecting his business. That's because, after their efforts started to strengthen, the cartel found a new route to gain the newest weapons, which is now Central America. According to Business Insider, they've even gotten hold of the Galil Ace, an Israeli rifle that's manufactured in Colombia, which is an official weapon for Mexican and Colombian law enforcement. Looks like when the law closes a route, it opens another one. But seeing as Arizona was the fuel provider for the majority of the cartel violence happening in Mexico, the ATF planned an operation to trace and tackle them. This was the ATF gunwalking scandal. The concept was simple: letting guns walk in the Tucson and Phoenix areas to illegal straw buyers, after which the ATF will track them down and arrest the buyers.
They want to change the dynamic and truly go after the kingpin, so give the kingpin something that they can't resist, this flow of weapons over 15 months, and then track them, find them, and take them down.
Under the Project Gunrunner, a number of sting operations took place between 2006 and 2011. The interesting fact is it was later named Operation Fast and Furious, after the agents discovered Chambers and other suspects under investigation belonged to a car club. During this operation, the ATF monitored about 2,000 sold firearms. of which only 710 were recovered as of February 2012. Here's how the timeline looked after it began in September of 2009. In December 2010, a Border Patrol agent, Brian Terry, was gunned down in Arizona near the Mexico border with, you guessed it, 2 assault rifles from the gunwalking operation. At the time, the public was not informed of this connection. In January 2011, a number of ATF whistleblowers and senators began the investigation into the gunwalking allegations. In February 2011, at least 11 ATF agents and senior managers claimed that they warned their superiors about the dangers of the gunwalking plan. One agent, who wished to stay anonymous, told CBS, "The numbers are over 2,500 on that case." Throughout the rest of 2011, there were lawsuits by Brian Terry's family, in which senators and presidents claimed to have not approved of this mission and did not have any part in it.
Well, first of all, I did not authorize it. Eric Holder, the Attorney General, did not authorize it. He's been very clear that our policy is to catch gun runners and put them into jail.
After this disastrous attempt to stop arms trafficking, ATF Director Kenneth Melson got reassigned, and the U.S. Attorney for Arizona, Dennis Burke, who oversaw the Fast and the Furious, resigned from his position in August 2011. As if letting the Sinaloa gang off with 2,000-plus guns wasn't bad enough, it was confirmed in 2014 that the DEA had struck a deal with the gang. According to an investigation by El Universal, between the years 2000 and 2012, the U.S. government worked out an arrangement that allowed the cartel to smuggle billions of dollars of drugs if Sinaloa provided information on rival cartels. Turns out they didn't just have deep pockets, they also had the DEA pocketed nicely in their network. In the report by El Universal, it was written that the DEA agents met with members of the cartel in Mexico to obtain information about their rivals, and simultaneously build a network of informants who signed drug cooperation agreements, subject to results, to enable them to obtain future benefits, including cancellation of charges in the U.S. At the time, the written statements were made in relation to the arrest of Jesus Vicente Zambada Niebla, son of the Sinaloa leader Ishmael El Mayo Zambada. His lawyer had made many claims at the time, even one about Operation Fast and Furious, that it was part of an agreement to finance and arm the cartel in exchange for information used to take down its rivals. But the linking doesn't stop there. In 2019, presidential hopeful Mario Estrada and congressional candidate Julio Jose Rosales were arrested during the election campaign in Guatemala on charges of links to the Sinaloa drug cartel. The traffickers had allegedly financed their election campaigns in exchange for help transporting cocaine and heroin to the United States. In 2020, the arrest of Mexico's former defense minister in the United States, General Salvador Cienfuegos, shook Mexico's military as he was found protecting the drug cartel in exchange for bribes. The allegations against Cienfuegos had everybody question the cabinet of leaders of the Army and Navy on whether they were incorruptible or not. In 2010, the Mexican troops had killed the King of Ice, Ignacio Nacho Coronel, as he exchanged fire with soldiers during a raid of a wealthy residential area in Guadalajara. The troops were backed by military helicopters that quietly swarmed the house in search of Coronel, since he was indicted in Texas court for allegedly smuggling tons of narcotics in the USA. In the intense shootout, he did wound military personnel, but no deaths were reported. You remember how El Chapo's son was let go after the cartel had taken hostages? Well, it's time to experience how the tables have turned. In July 2022, a reconnaissance mission took place to capture the infamous drug lord Rafael Caro Quintero, who was responsible for killing a U.S. DEA agent in 1985. There were 2 pending arrest orders for him, as well as an extradition request from the U.S. government. But here's where things went south. 2 civilians were killed, and 1 was wounded during the clash between the Mexican army and the cartel, which erupted after 4 cartel members were arrested. The 15 Mexican soldiers who went in for the arrest later met 60 cartel members who tried to intimidate the military into releasing the leader. They even offered a bribe of 10 million pesos. After their refusal, The soldiers were drawn into a firefight as sounds of automatic fire rang throughout the entire town. One cartel member and one soldier died in the firefight. Another casualty was the Black Hawk helicopter that crashed in the north of the country, which had 14 Marines on board. The Navy claims the crash to be an accident, but its cause is still under investigation. This occurred right after they fulfilled the mission of lending support to those conducting the arrest warrant for Caro Quintero. Overall, the arrest was successful and played a significant role in curbing the cartel's leader. Or did it? Based on all this, we know that the Sinaloa cartel continues to build its connections with the people and, secretly, the government. Many rumors have surfaced in the past about the cartel's government backing, but nothing concrete has been reported yet. All we know is, based on history, the cartel will continue to retaliate and make it difficult for the Mexican army to restore balance.